Whereas I could, whereas I could just like not be sure about something and come into a discussion with, I'm not sure about it. What do we all, like, can you guys illuminate me more on that?
Because when you write a paper, you're taught to like make the good argument. You're not allowed to say, I think this one is. Like, you're taught just to make a good argument and a good statement. But I see what you mean. You're like visceral. We're able to just like ask questions off the top of our head. Spontaneity is valuable sometimes, like your gut instincts to things. Yeah.
I think it was also nice that, like, going back to the Patriots, I didn't feel like I had to memorize this stuff, but I got to sit and think about it. And I really enjoyed, not everybody in this class has the same opinions, and in fact, like, we're drastically and across the board. And I think that was really refreshing, the fact that even though we had such different opinions, that you could still have that kind of discussion. And even though we didn't always agree, I think that was a really good thing. And it was very nice to,
Yeah, and also, like, we got to hear what everybody thinks. Like, you get to, because you read the papers, but, like, I never know what half of my classmates think about anything, because it's just not part of the classroom experience anymore. So, like, I thought that brought it back a lot for me.
and you got to know the students. I mean, I've been in classes with a couple people in this class, and I didn't really know them until we started talking. Because most times you get to sit there, you lecture, you take notes, you talk to people before class and after class, but you don't actually know any of the students. Like today, this guy, Glenn, in Professor Marini's, I sat next to him all semester. I didn't even know his name until he introduced himself today. Like, that's really sad.
I hate that.
Yeah.
Like, you talk so much that it's going to be awkward for like, well, what is your name?
Yes. Yeah.
I think the group work, we were kind of forced to like make friends too, which was not, I don't want to say forced, but.
Well, you had to work together.
Yeah.
You had to at least
There was a lot of tension during the discussions though, because I think that would keep us going sometimes.
Say what?
Like there was a lot of tension during some of the discussions, and that almost like helped them go long. They could have ended in 30 minutes.
The general discussions here.
Yeah.
Oh,
Every day when we'd ask, someone would always ask a good question. It wasn't necessarily when we had formal discussions. Even before we set up the class like this, people were saying stuff that would get a reaction out of someone.
Well, and I like the fact that it was for 3 hours on Tuesday, because even though I, never liked the 3-hour classes, it was still like it allowed us to continue discussion for long enough to like really get something out of it. And I feel like a lot of times when the classes are just an hour, 50 minutes, or an hour and a half, whatever, and then when it starts week, you don't get the chance to build on it. You just have to start over each class period. And I feel like we got a lot of thinking and a lot of learning in because we just did it for so long. And it was kind of rough in the beginning, but I think it like
It's scary.
yeah, but I feel like by the middle semester I was like used to it. It was fine. So
I only wish we would have started the political action project sooner.
Or figured out what we
We
were going to do
figured out what we
sooner.
would, yeah, because it took a while, but I think it
That's
would.
like part of the
It's
experience.
part of the process.
Yeah,
It would have
definitely.
been cool to have like a presentation like this weeks ago. I think that our group would have really benefited from something like that, especially because we only had 4 people. It would have been great to get done.
Yeah, we probably should have had, well, if I
That's okay,
I
but
will
you learn.
do this again,
Live and learn.
a year from now, but I don't, at this point, I don't know if I should, I suppose if I didn't have to set it up at the last minute, I could maybe do a 3-hour format earlier in the day. The late hour was a little
There are
tough.
3-hour
but-
blocks
Yeah.
earlier
Are
in the
there?
day. You just have to.
Yeah, no, and I picked this one because I told everybody who was in my classes before, because I wanted
Yeah.
you guys to come. I knew.
There was like this one, and then wasn't there one that was even later though?
No, that was the earlier.
Yeah,
I
there
don't
was
remember
one,
Wednesday, like,
but nobody could come. Yeah,
This one.
I think, even apart from everything else that I got out of it, just the fact that it was different by itself is a valuable experience, because every class that I've taken in college has basically been the same format, and it's just, if anything, just that it doesn't have to be that way. I think it's a
To me, that was, after all these years of teaching, and I was sitting there going, I cannot lecture at these people for 3 hours. I mean, that just wasn't it was going to kill me, and I could see, as interested as, I thought you all were, it's exhausting. It's not the right format, so something had to switch. And it would have been nice to know at the beginning, like if I did this, I will do it again, but, if it kind of grew spontaneously, and we did lose a month or more, of this kind of activism, planning stuff.
Well, I think there has to be a transition period, because even when you make a conscious decision to change a class structure like this, we've all been taking classes for so long in the old manner that even in a lot of our discussions before we got going, you still tended to lecture for the better part of the time.
Yeah.
And we listened, which I can't say that's a bad thing because you know the material. I mean, you had a lot more time to study and figure this stuff out, and so I really appreciate it, but I just noticed that even though we changed the structure for the first 3 or 4 classes, we didn't necessarily change the structure until we got comfortable with it.
Absolutely,
Like
yes.
this table thing.
Yeah.
Because like, if we have to look, if you're like looking us down,
Yeah.
we're like, we have to pay attention, not that we wouldn't pay attention. I mean, the fact that you're like so close, you really gotta pay attention.
I really like the idea of the working in groups and breaking out and doing separate projects in a way. Like even though when that was, I was gone the day that was decided upon, and when I came back I was a little critical of it, it ended up working out. It also excites me thinking that this class could go on and thinking about like what the next round of people would do if there's already a manifesto and this pledge. Does that include like presenting it to certain people or, you know, holding these rallies or like, I just don't know. I think that's kind of fun to think about, you know, like who knows, hopefully the next round of kids are excited about it too.
And that there will be some continuity. I mean, at least, you know, I'll be here and some of you will be. And, you know, we should probably maybe think of a time to meet, you know, early next semester to, you know, have a club meeting, as it were.
We get t-shirts.
Wouldn't that be great?
Yeah.
You'll be really confused.
Yeah, I won't be here, but whoever's the treasurer next semester, you just have to apply for funding, like Nate said. It's not terribly.
Who's the treasurer now, Eric? And you want to, so are you going to be here next year?
Yeah, I'm down.
Okay, I nominate Eric for treasurer for next.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
that all
I'll
you
be
can do is
This is, I'm completely moved by this. This is fantastic, because it's crazy for me to have taught this many decades and never have, you know, and been afraid. I think Shannon's right. I was afraid not to lecture. I thought, I'm not doing my job. You know, I mean, there's a certain amount of stuff I always think I have to convey. I mean, because you can't just go in and say, well, my opinion on Marx is this, you know. I mean, you kind of have to know some background. You have to ground it in the literature and the standard interpretations. But then, it's not set. You have to be challenged to think. And it was really hard to shift to kind of trusting you guys and to not talking, and then to hear. I mean, what you guys said about how you read this stuff is invaluable. I mean, I don't know. That's exactly what I always hope students do. So what it takes to get you to do that is not making you write these formulaic 5 to 7 page papers every 5 or 6 weeks. You know, I mean, what a blessing for all of us.
It's nice to read to understand, because I was always highlighting stuff, not necessarily that I thought I was going to be tested on, but knowing that I was going to have to eventually write a paper, stuff that is like, okay, how can I structure this with an argument instead of what does this actually mean?
That makes it worth the whole thing.
And also, like, having our roundtable discussions, I felt way more accountable for what I was going to be saying.
Yeah.
Because it was going to be where you guys could all hear. It's like, if I don't know what I'm talking about, something be like, you don't know what you're talking about. That's not what it said. So I felt very responsible, like, in knowing what I wanted to say and, like, knowing the material well, not because I had to write a paper, but because my peers are going to be hearing me speak about this. I think that, like, you know, I think that's a really big thing, too.
And not just that, but also, like, there are some things that, you know, like, you'd come to the class and you would struggle on, and it's like you could rely to be picked up that class and understand it by the end of the class, because everybody else knew what they were talking about. So I thought
Or
that-
struggle through it
Yeah.
together to come to some, like, you know, idea of what it meant.
Yeah.
That's awesome, because there's also such an emphasis on writing, I think, on, well, we talked about this, you know, products, you know, you want, see, they did work, you know. That it's so nice to hear that you find that learning is more effective when you don't have to churn out a product, you know. I mean, writing is important. I write, you know, I mean, my research, it's agony, but, you know, writing is what I do, writing and teaching. But to mindlessly just assume that this kind of ritual is what produces careful reading and critical thinking and idea forming. It's so cool to learn that you were more challenged by each other than you would be sitting alone coming up with a product. That's fantastic.
I always remember discussion-based classes more than, like, jurisprudence. We don't do a lot of writing, but we do talk a lot. Not necessarily off topic, but like, everyone, yeah, everyone gets in and it's like, you want to go to class because it's just, you know, it gets intense and, I don't know.
And even this reflection was really nice because I was thinking, I mean, I had to write something kind of similar for a different class, but it was more structured. Even this was nice because I could just sit here and think about the class. I didn't have to think about, I didn't have to tie the writing. I mean, we had to tie the writings a little bit back in here, but I was like, it's more of a thought piece. It allows me to piece it all together for myself. And I think that's way more valuable than having a test on what I supposedly learned. This allows me to figure out what I learned instead of having somebody else judge what I learned.
I agree, and like I was able to tie even like some of our theories we learned into our personal experiences in our action, and that just solidified what the theorists were saying even more. Like you're saying, it just brings it home for you.
See, I feel a little weird turning it in because like we learned earlier that whole dialectic and all that. I'm already like ready to change the things I've written. You know, like I don't want to turn it in. Like, well, maybe email you another one or something. You know, because it's just like I already feel differently than I did about the paper. From today, because we've had some interesting reflection, you know.
If, you know, I mean, I don't know when I have to turn the grades in.
You should just read that one. It's
But,
probably
yeah, it's fine.
easier
If
for both of us that way.
Just send it
That
back
reminds me
copies.
of every
That's
couple days
that's
you're
when
like, oh, I was
something's done, you know,
done.
in life anyway. Somehow it's done when there's some deadline, you know.
Yeah.
It never
But it's not really
is
done.
actually.
Well, it kind of goes back to Marx. It's like you were talking about your original analogy with the paper, how you always have to come back to it. Even though the class may be ending and we may not turn this in, I think it might be important for at least me to come back to this class and just think about this paper and this idea a lot more. Even, because I think you're right, I think it is a struggle and it's never ending. So if you can always remind yourself of this class, you might be able to take that and apply it in other areas of your studies or life.
And at the same time, though, I think it's nice to have a reflection because you can see how you're feeling at that moment and see how you evolve next semester, see how you interact with students in your classes next semester, even though you won't be in this class. Like you can go back and see how you're feeling and see if you become different at all.
Yeah, documents change.
This is very awesome. I'm completely blown away. This is my favorite class ever.
Can I get that? Is that written down?
I had a feeling last fall with the two classes that you, pretty much all of you came from. I think I know all of you. And I just thought, what's happened? Nevada students are good. Maybe my sabbatical worked, you know. But I just, every once in a while, it's kind of cyclical. You get a draw. You get a group of personalities and energy and people that are just a pleasure to work with. And I, you know, it was, you know, and then you kind of self-selected to come to this, which, you know, maybe why it worked so well. But, you know, I knew last fall that this was one of those kind of special collections of people. So,
Are you going to teach the same topic next spring?
maybe.
Like same readings and such?
I don't know. What do you, well, tell me.
Well, I'm not going to.
I know you're not. No, I mean, what do you think? I mean, I was a little dissatisfied with the amount of time and what I picked maybe to have you read in our end. I think it kind of didn't, I'm not sure it worked, but I think she's so important to political action. I mean, do you think I should? Would you
Keep her in,
recommend
but
it?
the civil disobedience part, not the human condition.
Not the human condition.
Yeah, I would
Sarah
keep
Keys
her, and I would just take out, even though I loved Robert Reich, I thought that was awesome. Like, I would put that on the side for, like, recommended readings, because
Okay.
it's a quick read.
Yeah.
But, I mean, like, I would like to read that outside the classroom, but it didn't bring much to me into what we were doing. So I would just have, like, those
I liked
two
that.
major.
Whereas I really enjoyed it. Like, but I think it's definitely different. Like,
Yeah.
maybe.
I
He's not
enjoyed it a
theorist.
ton.
I mean,
Yeah.
it's a, you know, and that's
Yeah.
written for public audience.
And I thought that was like very applicable to like where we are now.
Yeah, that's what I
In our.
I think, yeah, I
Quick
agree.
question.
I don't think he was much just a
If
theory,
you
but it was
changed
nice.
some of the readings around, would we be able to take the class again for credit?
Well, that's
Yeah,
my
we
point
can
too.
take 409 twice.
Oh, that'd be awesome.
That would, if you, those of you who are still here, you kidding, that would be awesome. You would.
Can I take it from London?
I didn't really get to talk about it too much, but I know I think it was the Marx reading that you handed out. One idea on there that really like I thought a lot about. So sometimes it's just kind of like the contrast between the libertarian and the Marx, and so I mean they're very, very different. I think that's something that are two very popular ideas today. That I would have liked to spend more time on if I could choose the readings or something, you know.
Yeah. And I feel that Marx was crucial.
Yeah, Marx.
I think it was too. I think he got the ball rolling. I mean, because the whole idea that we thought about it, now it's time to act, and his whole thing. I don't agree with his ideas or his methods, but his dedication to acting politically, I think, is incredibly important, because I don't think Arendt would have had the ideas. She didn't agree with him, but her ideas, I think, were based in Marx in a way.
Yeah, actually, I've written a piece saying that the two of them were, grounded in the material world, even though she's not a Marxist.
Yeah.
I might change up the readings on our end, maybe give, put on, reserve a section of the human condition, and there's some other essays that I found myself referring to that.
And even some of the rereads a year from now, because I would really like to take the class again. I think it would give me even more insights to read it again a year from now and be like, oh wow,
That's very awesome. Yeah, and not have to write on it again. Yeah, all right. And so what do you think? Do you think the 3-hour slot is really important for this?
I think it's crucial, because there's no way you could have it just, if you're going to keep this format, if you get a group of students that won't participate like we do, then I think the lecture probably could be shorter. But if you're going to have a discussion, like Nate said, there's no way you could have a discussion in only 50 or an hour. You have to start over. And
We basically ran out of time right now.
you know it, you have to end.
But you won't know what kind of group students you get until you pick the time slot, so.
But if it's always advertised to your students like you did with us, that would be a good way of doing it. Because I felt like, not recruited in a bad way, but like, got a good selection that way.
And I'll for sure do that. So
Yeah,
have
could you
one
like
person.
email us if it happens?
Yeah, well, is the Google list gonna?
It's just gonna be there
Yeah.
forever. I mean, if you guys don't wanna be
No,
on
I
it, you
think
can remove
I
yourself.
am definitely scheduled to teach a 409. That I asked for it because I was having so much fun with this. I said, what do you want to teach in the spring? I'm going to do this.
What are you teaching anything in the fall?
In the fall, I'm teaching 354. I'm just teaching the one. I'm going to buy out of one class so I can finish one next year, hopefully by December. But and it's Tuesday and Thursdays at 1, and it's a kind of upper division version of the Women in Politics class.
I signed up for that.
Oh, good. Yeah,
I did too.
and what I will try to do, I'm actually going to be, I'm teaching at Berkeley, yes, this summer. What I'm going to try to do is beef up, in that 255, I spent a lot of time on the 19th century. And I'd like to, what I'll do in 354 is move more quickly to the suffrage and spend more time on issues, civil rights, Title IX, sports and gender and elections, it takes some doing for me to get readings that are good enough. I'm real good on the gender and sports, and actually I have a TA at Berkeley. And said, why don't you put your own work in? Why everybody's,
UBank does that.
I don't want to sell books, but I would, but I will talk about gender and sports.
I think I should do your own book, sell my book. Yeah, Schiller in the Econ Department is his textbook.
All right,
So,
yeah.
It's a good idea, I
Yeah.
think.
Yeah, it's not like you're
I
selling
think
a
it's
$100 textbook.
I think if it was the
$16.
Some teachers do that though.
See, I would feel if it was the only book, maybe it would be a little like really.
Okay.
But I mean, it's
Putting it in, all right, I'll do it.
But once you're teaching your class, and if that's your ideas, and I mean, I think that's.
I know, it saves a lot of time, like, here, read this.
Instead of some lecturing, and you're like, hey, my ideas, hey, right there.
Okay, and I mean, as long as, I've never done that because I've always thought, well, that's, kind of self-aggrandizing, but I have been encouraged, I'm gonna,
I listened to your interview that you gave for one class semester or whatever, wasn't it like a?
that I gave to,
Yeah, there was like an internet link and you went there and you like talked about your book.
oh, yeah.
Yeah, I listened
Did
to
I
that.
show you?
I think
Okay.
you gave us a link to that. Yeah, that was interesting.
Yeah.
I enjoyed it.
All right, well, that's what, it's gonna be more on contemporary gender and race issues, you know, I mean, so cool. And, you know, and I think I should do some more stuff about sexuality than I do. You know, things like equality in marriage, and especially if that's gonna be a big election issue, it looks like.
Yeah, it looks like.
Timely.
Yeah, yep. But, so what, I should go, let's okay this, and I'll go print it and bring it back to you, right?
Yeah.
Yep.
Does that sound
Okay
good when I
with
put
it.
it
I like
in there?
Say what?
Does that sound good when I put it in there from the start?
Let's read it through again, I mean, all your names are gonna go on this, and we're
Want
gonna.
me to go and read it?
Yeah,
All right.
we're gonna send this to the Gazette or the,
Yeah.
This is the.
Did they say
new
they have
one?
like a list of the
Yeah,
work
that's the
applications?
one.
All right.
Oh.
A war has begun in the once great state of Nevada, waged against the students by those with power. A series of battles has seen the vulnerability of our generation be taken advantage of and our interests thrown to the curbside. Nevada is trying to balance its budget on the backs of its college students. The state legislators' poor planning and lack of initiative